Yo, what's up, y'all? We out here yet again. It's another episode of Ngorii Stories, and I know it has been a while. Don't check your clocks. Don't check the calendars. It's been a while. Trust me on that. But we are back with another episode, and it's all about taking a step ahead, spiritually, socially, physically, mentally, practically. It's all about taking a step ahead, seeing how God can lead in different ways of our lives, and sharing the stories of people who are doing this very thing. Now, it's a beautiful day down here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're here at Southern Adventist University, right here on the campus in the church for this podcast episode. And I have a special guest that I'm going to introduce to you who is interested in missions. We're going to hear a little bit of her story here today on the podcast. So, Laura, welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me.
And we actually know each other from the gymnastics team on Andrews University Gymnastics. Crazy, because we're there. I'm rocking the gymnastics shirt. We're here at Southern. So it's a little bit confusing, but bear with us. It's all about mission and being able to share these stories here. So, Laura, I'm going to ask you to share just a little bit about yourself. Brief introduction. What would you like the people to know?
Okay, well, I'm Laura. I'm studying in my fourth year at Andrews University. I'm doing pre-med, but my major psychology, and my plans for the future are going to medical school. I'm still not sure yet, which is all going to be part of this, of like what I'm doing with my future. But yeah. I was born in Brazil and then raised in Canada for most of my life, but now my family just moved to Tennessee, so that's why I'm here. But yeah.
All over. Mm-hmm. And it's like, we were supposed to be on a spring break gymnastics tour. Yeah. So we weren't even supposed to be here, but it just happened that we could be here. And it's like, hey man, let's connect and talk about this podcast and this mission thing. We've been talking about it for a long time, passing back and forth in the gym. Hey, we got to talk about this. And yeah, I remember it was after, I think, a practice or a gymnastics circle that I missed was when you had told the team that you were going to go.
Yes.
So coach filled me in afterwards, and I was like, yo, I lost my mind. Because every time, we had a few team members last year who decided to go. Every time I hear about missions and people who are interested, I get very excited about it. But it's hard to just sit and have a conversation about it when you're supposed to be practicing. Mm-hmm. Laura's working on silks, and I'm working on breaking my wrist with men's form and stuff like that. So now we get the chance. And I definitely want to thank you for taking the time to jump on the pod here and share about your experience. I appreciate it. I'm going to start with like my general question for these podcasts. These words, mission and service, when you hear them, what comes to mind? What do they mean to you?
I think they're just really important for, like, personally, just my walk with, like, Jesus. And, like, I think I have, like, one of my, I think, like, natural gifts that I figured out was a lot, like, for caring for people. And I think that's a big part of, like, service and mission is, like, going out and just, like, caring for people. It can be something as simple as just, like, having a conversation with somebody and, like, listening and, like, sharing the gospel with somebody. But I think also, like, I've always wanted to do something more out there, more in depth in, like, the mission part of, like, going out and doing missions. So then I thought, like, obviously student missions would have been perfect for, very out of my comfort zone, but
the
perfect for what I want to do. So, yeah.
Okay. What kind of sparked your perspective on that?
I'm actually not sure, honestly. Of like sparked my perspective on missions, or like why I even wanted to go.
Kind of that idea. Let me frame it this way. A lot of times we hear those words and they kind of just float over our heads. Mm-hmm. And people don't look at the practical aspect of what this means I should do or how I can contribute to that. It stays an idea. But what you're expressing is something that you can connect with and do something about. Mm-hmm. So what sparked that for you?
You know what it actually might have been? I think it might have been my years in Pathfinders. Because I remember always doing, I think at the beginning, obviously, like, service missions kind of just went over my head, especially when I was so young. I was like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what I can actually do about it. But then I think, especially in Pathfinders, I joined, like, a pretty big church in Pathfinders. So we had, like, quite a few people. So then we would actually get to do a bunch of stuff. Like, I remember putting together and collecting, like, food donations from, like, the community, and then we got to, like, go out and give them out after, which was, like, so special. And I think that's, like, the first taste I got of, like, service and mission, of, like, the more in-depth part of it. So I think that might have been it. And then ever since then, it's just been, like, something I've wanted to do but didn't get to do it.
Okay. I think that's interesting. I think that's really interesting. So these moments in Pathfinders not only gave you the opportunity to plug into that, but to realize, hey, this is something I really enjoy and that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
That I like that. I like that. it'd be interesting to know if there was a specific conversation or somebody saying something or an interaction you had with somebody that kind of furthered your development in that.
Yeah, that I can't remember. I'm sure there were. I just remember obviously like the feeling of wanting to go, but I'm sure there was conversations with people. But I don't know if there was conversations like with necessarily like pastors or something like that. It might have just been like with friends and like on this topic, stuff like that, and just their perspectives of it, and then sharing that. And me, I don't know. I should think more about that one.
Oh, that's a good question. Now, it is something that has stuck with you from that point till now.
Yeah.
I do remember that we have like gymnastics awards and banquet stuff that we do at the end of the year. And if I remember correctly, we had like a gymnastics servant leader award. And you received that award. Now, when I tell you that Laura's like super low key, she's not the kind of person who's going to be out there broadcasting all the stuff that she's doing. And I didn't have input in this. I think this was a coach decision, like solely. So based on the things that he knew and the things that he was aware of, and without me being on campus more often than not, it's like I'm completely unaware of these things. So I'm curious. I want to know, spill the beans a little bit. What are some of the things that you were involved in at that point that you felt led towards the reception of that award?
Honestly, at first, because that's I think how I knew. Like honestly, my years at Andrews is how like I've started to learn that like one of my gifts is obviously like service and stuff like that. And because I was actually surprised to get that award because I didn't think about it until the moment. And then I looked back and then I realized, okay, maybe like I can see what he was seeing for me. But it was things that were just
That's
naturally.
the best way that it should be, by the way.
It was just naturally of like, I think me always like staying, whenever like coach ever said he needed help with something, I would offer like my help and like stay late and like put things away or something at practice. And I remember, I think this was especially after home show. And I remember like there's a bunch of times where coach, it would be like on a Friday or something and he would need help like putting things on a truck or something like that. And I would show up and help. But yeah, like that was just so natural to me. So I didn't even know that would be something I'd be like awarded for. But then like, yeah, looking back, I think that's probably what he was seeing. And yeah, I think, I don't know what coach thought about it.
I think that's really cool. And I do want to highlight how it's very easy for people these days to not only do things, but it's like, what's the motive behind it? And kind of want that recognition for it. And I've seen instances where people are almost like, oh, the Servant Leadership Award. All right, they're going to call my name. I've seen that. So I think it's a really cool contrast to where you're like, wait, what? Just because it's who you are, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But also for that to be recognized and appreciated, I think is a big deal and a confirmation of what you recognize is a gift that you have. I think that's really cool. Now, you mentioned kind of not having the opportunity to serve or earlier in your experience, but you're at a point now where it's like, okay, now I have the chance. What flipped the switch and said, I'm going after it now?
This is a long story, I guess.
By all means.
We can get into it. Okay, but the first time I remember wanting to do student missions and where I wasn't able to, well, not necessarily student mission, but just like a mission trip, was in my senior year of high school. Or no, it wasn't my senior year. It was 11th grade. So my junior year of high school is when they were doing a mission trip, and it was to, can't remember, somewhere in Central America. I can't remember where it was right now, but I really wanted to go, and like I had the money set and everything, and then COVID happened. So then nobody got to go, and so obviously that like I couldn't do it then, and that was the first time I remember like, but already because I was like right after Pathfinders and right after I already kind of knew that that's something I wanted to do, and mission trips was always something that sparked my interest for stuff. But then so that didn't get to happen, and then I came to Andrews. And I remember seeing presentations by like the student missions people or like Vespers or like just conversations with people that had gone. Like it's something that tugged at my heart for a very long time. But then especially like the first few years, I was just like, I just want to get settled in. It was the first time I moved away from my family and stayed in the dorm because I was always somebody who like commuted to school. So I was lucky for that. But so like I was like already kind of overwhelmed with everything. So I was like, I didn't push it aside. But then I still was like, hey, maybe next year, maybe next year. So then that happened, and then there was times I remember where it tugged at my heart enough that I would reach out to the student missions coordinator. But then, and I think there was one time we set up a meeting, but I can't remember what came up. There was always something that came up, and I just never went to it, and it just never happened. And on a personal note too, is that at the time, well, before that, it was actually because I had always planned on like the 4 years at Andrews where I would do my pre-med and then go straight into med school. So that kind of like, that was my plan for what I wanted to do. And so there wasn't really time to do student missions. And in the summer, I work at a summer camp. So I also couldn't even look at it over the summer. So that was kind of hard. And then another thing that was like more personal, it was early on in university, like I got into a relationship that was pretty serious, and like obviously we started getting to the point where like we were making plans for the future together and stuff like that, and it definitely didn't fit into the future of what I thought, like the future that I had decided for my life. And it just, and like, yeah, long distance, it wasn't gonna work. So then I just kept pushing it aside, and I was like, oh, it's not gonna work. Especially like last year, I think that's when I decided, it was like, oh, that's probably just not gonna happen. But maybe, like I was always like, oh, but maybe after I become a doctor, then I can do student mission, like a mission work that way. So it's like, it's not like, I just kept pushing it aside, and I was like, not right now. Like I knew I wanted to do it, but I was just like, not right now. But then God definitely just redirected my whole life, and like so yeah, I ended that relationship, and it was literally the day after, and I had like a long prayer with God of like, hey, since you just turned my whole, what I thought my plans were for my future upside down, you have to tell me what you want for my future. Like I'm gonna trust you, but you have to tell me what you want for me, and like this time I'm gonna go your way and not make my own plans. I'll decide on your plans. And I know the first thing that came into my head so clearly was that now this is my opportunity to do student missions.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. It took all that to fully convince me, but yeah, then I was very convinced, and I was like, okay. So then I postponed going to med school for a year. So that's why I'm taking like a gap year, and then perfect for student missions.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm set on it. There's nothing that's gonna turn my mind around this time.
Let's go. That's amazing. And I can only imagine how tough of a position you could be in when you're talking about the plans that you have, whether it's school-wise, relationship-wise. Both of these things are almost the fundamental elements of a college experience. And it's like to have something that's trying to, a mission trying to crack its way in. It's hard. It's hard. And somehow through that all, God was able to, as you said, redirect things. I love that perspective on it, because it's a mature perspective to have for something like that. And by that, I mean, it's not an easy perspective to have when things happen like that. So I want to shout you out for that, for being open to that, because it's definitely a testament to the relationship that you have with God, and that communication that's there, to be able to hear that and to say, you know what, now we're going with this thing. So in the framework of that, you have mission trying to break in and maybe even disrupting, or as you said, like being completely contrary to what it seemed was going to happen. How did the conversations about missions and your interest in that, how did it impact maybe conversations with family, friends, associates? What was people's response to hearing your desire to participate in that?
Oh, yeah, especially with my family. I remember I had a conversation with like my parents, like about everything going on in my life, like the relationship stuff, the school stuff, because like they knew what my plans were, and I mean they were going with it. But then as soon as I told them like, oh, I want to change my plans, but they weren't surprised by me saying I'm like, what I'm gonna do during my gap year is definitely do student missions, because I had told them like, oh, I really wanted to do it. Like it's such a cool opportunity, especially being at Andrews, that like they have connections for that.
They do, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh, imagine Andrews, connections to mission. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, nobody was surprised, because like I think they knew that like I really wanted to do it, and yeah, and then with friends, I had a few conversations, but I don't think everybody was like really happy that I did that, because I think they all knew that I wanted to, but I just needed somebody to like push me, or something to happen to like push me over the edge, so that I was like for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was all like I mean, it was really nice that I had nobody saying like, "Oh, are you sure about this?" or something like that. So then it was like I was at peace with my decision and I knew it was right.
That's good. I'm really glad to hear that. I was talking with the producer, whose name shall not be named at this point, just a couple days ago, about how in my interactions with missions at Andrews, it's very interesting that we have some professors even who actually discourage students from participating in mission. And that, it blows my mind in one sense, it infuriates me on another sense. Because it's like this is the school, like this is the place where of all places we should be encouraging people to do this particular thing and seeing how it practically applies to all the stuff that we claim to believe in. Like if there isn't any practical demonstration of our doctrine or our faith, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't. So yeah, I'm glad that the people around you were speaking a life into that and not pulling away from that. When it comes to kind of the ways that you thought you might be able to serve, what has that process looked like? Because student missions has so many different opportunities. You're talking about the medical field in particular. What has that process been like for you?
Yeah, I started looking more into, like, once I decided I wanted to do student missions, I started looking at, like, searching up on the website or whatever, like, which opportunities there were and which places to go. For me, it's like, I didn't care where I went. But then I think when I realized that one of the options was to be a medical assistant, I just thought that was perfect for, like, I don't know, like, it's exactly what I want to do with, like, my future, and I thought that would be, like, a really good, like, taste in it and, like, a way that I could serve, because I know they have a lot of, like, teaching ones. And I'm like, if God sends me there, I will do it. But I was like, I much rather, like, it's just, I know that that's not exactly what I'm called to do. So I know the medical field is where God is calling me. So then I just thought that was perfect. And then it didn't matter to me where I went, but then I had heard so many cool things about Palau.
Oh,
about a bunch of people, yeah. And then when you mentioned that you could go to Palau as a medical assistant, I was convinced immediately. So yeah, I was just like, yeah, for me, it's wherever God wanted to send me, but especially the medical field, just not only to like be able to like gain more experience in healthcare, but also that I think that's like the way I want to serve, is just like caring for people and like helping heal them and stuff like that.
I love that. And so it does sound like, and obviously things can change, but it sounds like Palau's where you would want to go, and that medical assist role, we stand for that. We stand for that. Beyond that tangible work that you would be doing there, in the actual profession of the medical assistant, what are some of the other things you're looking forward to about a mission experience? What do you hope to learn about yourself?
I think about myself, honestly, the one thing that comes to mind is how scared I am to go. I'm not gonna lie, but then I know that that's a way that God can definitely like break down my walls of, because like I'm pretty introverted and stuff like that. So like going out and doing something like this is terrifying. But then I know that like that's probably the perfect opportunity that God can, like, that I have to learn to rely on God solely and not have like other people to like talk to about stuff like this. And like I would love to just make connections with like obviously the patients, but also like the community there and stuff. Yeah. And learn. I have a lot of stuff to learn, so I'm sure I'll get taught a lot of stuff there.
For sure. The mission field as a classroom, I felt for a long time, they used to say that being out there for a year was worth 2 years of like undergrad. And I believe that. Just the way that and it comes back to this whole thing, the practicality of it. Because I guess to share a little bit of my own experience growing up as a Christian, it wasn't very practical. It was a bunch of ideas that I would hear people talking about, and I'm not trying to put it all on everybody else. Maybe it was just me not seeing it, but I didn't feel like I was seeing people live out all the time the things that we were talking about. And it bothered me so much to the point where I was like, I'm tired of this, because why should I wanted to be somebody who was about my word, and I didn't see how I could be about my word if where I was, like, the word didn't mean anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So being able to find that practical application for it, that's what made me realize, wait a second, this whole Christianity stuff, it makes sense. Like it means something now. It was only through service that I found that. And I feel like I was able to get back, in a sense, a lot of those years of learning that I lost or maybe missed out on because of my own perceptions of it when I was growing up, which is probably why I stayed out there for so long. But and I needed it. I needed it. But I think that's really cool, that perspective on that, and especially the fear factor. You've mentioned a couple things that are not trigger words, but like key words on this podcast: fear and the comfort zone. And these things, let me tell you, everybody has a comfort zone, right? But for as comfortable as it is, nothing great ever grows there. Yeah. And we can have moments that kind of make us feel good about the comfort zone, but that fear, like embracing that fear and saying, I have to get outside, I believe that it's something actually divine that is happening. Because God is trying to tell us, hey, there's a version of you that is capable of so much more than you're capable of right now. But you have to get beyond that fear to experience it and to see it. And it means taking a step outside of the comfort zone. I'm like obsessed with the ocean. And there's that statement, smooth seas never made a skilled sailor, right? And there's the other one where a ship in harbor is safe, but that's not what it's built for. Okay. And all of these concepts are all about, in the comfort zone, you can have an existence there for sure, but it's not going to be, you could be a sailor in the comfort zone, but you're not going to be a skilled sailor. In other words, there's more to it than just existing, which happens to be the tagline. We'll say that when we get out the end of the podcast. But breaking out of that comfort zone, embracing that fear, and trusting in God, as you're talking about, on a different level, those are very exciting things. Even though they're scary, they're very exciting things. Because the willingness to do that, like there's a quote, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it's a quote by Denzel Washington, and essentially what he's saying is, when you embrace or accept a calling and you take a step in that direction, it's a guarantee that you've already achieved it. And I love that, because it's easy for us to focus on this step and the next step and how hard that one is. But we're not even realizing the greater journey we're stepping into because we took that first step. And because we're moving in this direction, the ending, that's the natural conclusion of this path. As long as we keep taking that one step, we'll get there. So that says awesome things for you and your ministry moving forward, which is legit. I've been talking for a while, so let me stop. And I want to ask you this idea of the fear and the comfort zone. How have you related to that?
No, that's always been like a struggle I have. It's like, yeah, I want to do like service and stuff like that, but I hate being in front of people. Like, that is so far out of my comfort zone. Like, even this podcast, like, I'm not gonna lie, is very far out of my comfort zone. But then it's like, that's also what forces me to trust God. Mm-hmm. And so that's what's so important about it. It's just the fear, like, it is. I think it's a mixture of, like, especially looking into me going to Palau and doing student missions, like, the fear mixed in with the excitement. Because I'm excited because I know that God's got my back. So then I know that this fear is just like, and yeah, where like the fear and getting out of my comfort zone is where I'm going to learn and where I'm going to grow and stuff like that. So like, I know it's very important. Like the fear will, yeah. I don't know if the fear will ever go away, to be honest. I hope it does, but I get more comfortable, but yeah.
I will say, I don't know if the fear ever goes away. Your reliance on God does get to a point to where you can see it and recognize and be like, okay, cool. Mm-hmm. You become more accepting of it. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I'll use this. You mentioned you being an introvert. Mm-hmm. Most people look at me and think I'm an extrovert. I am not an extrovert.
Really?
See?
I'm surprised.
But it's, I tell you, every time I get up in front of somebody, whether it's preaching or giving a worship in gymnastics or something like that, I'm like, I'm freaking out if I'm gonna do it right or whatever mess. Like, really? Yes.
I would not be able to tell ever.
The fear is always there.
Uh-huh.
It's there. But, praise God, he's able to, and especially because of the opportunities that he's given me to do those kinds of things, it kind of gets a little bit easier, but not really. It's just like, all right, like you said, I know you got me, so you got to come through because I don't know what I'm doing out here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a really interesting thing to work through, and it sounds like you're on that path, which is cool. When it comes to the potential challenges that will come from the experience, or even just the lessons that you hope to learn from your experience here, what do you go to? What do you find is your source of strength and motivation in challenges that you've been through in the past, or dealing with the fear and wrestling with stepping outside of the comfort zone? Where do you find your strength?
I think for sure would be the Bible, of just reading the Bible and praying about it, or like having conversations with people about like the Bible and God. Because I think that's just the easiest way to like calm myself down when I'm going into something really scared. I don't know if I've had that many, thankfully so far, I don't think I've had that many like big challenges to have to overcome and stuff like that. But I know that I've always gone to the Bible for like smaller ones, and like a big thing of me like having worries about my future. I feel like that's probably been the biggest challenge. And like there's so many good Bible verses that help. And yeah. And especially on the one for service, one big Bible verse that kept coming up was, you can correct me if I'm wrong on which one it is, with Matthew 20:28, which says like the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve.
Yes.
And that one really stuck with me. And I'm like, I cannot go wrong because I know God has my back. And if I'm like following Jesus' example, like that's the example I want to follow. Because that's like, I think that service is like the ultimate point of like the gospel. So, yeah.
Whoa, that's a sermon right there. That's a sermon right there. That's one of my favorite verses, Matthew 20:28. And it is because of that. The only reason I am a Christian today is because of my time in the mission field. The only reason. If it wasn't for seeing the service component, that practical element that connects all of these ideas with real life, Christianity would not have anything for me. But because that connection exists and that it's there, and because we can so clearly see it from the life of Jesus, like that's the thing. And that's a whole different episode, but I do struggle with it even today when I look at least in my mind, how simple it is to see how Jesus served. Yeah. And that was the majority of what he did, was serving, not preaching, but serving. And structurally within the church, sometimes it feels like, why are we focusing on this stuff more than this, That's a different episode, different topic for a different day. Stay tuned. But I love that. That's everything. I couldn't have said it better myself. It is everything about the gospel. That's what makes it good news, because you can see it, and experience it in a real, tangible way. That's what makes it good. That's a sermon right there. Shoot, I love it. Oh, man. Getting here to the end of the podcast, wrapping up here, I want to ask, when do you plan on going? This is March 20th right now. When are you looking at going? What do you feel like the process of gearing up to go might look like for you?
I'm planning on going next January, so for the spring semester. And I mean, I'm saying that I'll be there like 3-4 months. But I mean, if I get there, and I'm there for how long were you there?
5 years.
For 5 years. I mean, it's okay with me. But yeah, that's when I'm going. I don't know when I'll be back, but that's when I'm going.
I love it. That's what I'm talking about. In Palau. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
What were you saying, the preparation stuff to go?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have at least like the specific details set on like where I'm going or anything like that. So honestly, I'm just praying at this point. That's my preparation. That's
the best prep you can have, honestly. Oh man, that's what I'm talking about. How do you feel like this experience is going to contribute to you on the other end when you come back?
I think obviously in the personal ways of learning how to serve like wholeheartedly and what that means, and living out my faith in that way. But then especially in like me wanting to go into the healthcare, I think I'll learn so many things of like, that's exactly what I want to do, and have like a very caring and like patient-centered clinic if I ever get to have my own clinic and stuff like that. And I think especially there, I'll learn how to do that and how I can apply it when I work in the future. And that's exactly what I want to be doing. So
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see it. Look, Laura, I'm very excited for you and your experience. Like from this point through next January to whenever you go, I'm looking forward to seeing you get out there and enjoy that and all the things that God is going to do for you. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. And hopefully I'll be around a podcast episode for that too. Stay tuned, the follow-up. But as we get down here, like I said, to the end, I want to give you the last word. What encouragement or motivation or just anything you want to leave with the viewers here as we wrap up?
I think the biggest thing is just don't be scared. Like, I'm terrified. And so, like, I get it, but like step out of your comfort zone, because like I know I'm going to learn so much, and I know there's probably a lot of other things that keep coming in and trying to, like, the devil wants you to stay away from Jesus and like doing missions and stuff like that. So there's going to be things like, for me, like Jesus had to just keep creeping in and like going through the cracks of stuff, and he'll keep doing it, but you have to allow him to. And I mean, if you don't do it, he'll definitely redirect you very obviously by the end of it. But like, I don't know, just try not to be scared and trust that God has a plan. And especially the fear being in fear of being out of your comfort zone is where growth is going to happen. So I think that's probably like, even though you're scared, like do it. Don't be scared.
That's what I'm talking about. Couldn't have said it better myself. Laura, I want to thank you for your service, past, present, and future. I think it's really cool to see. I wish we had more people with this mentality that you have, that were willing to go out there and just explore not only the world, but what God has for you within the world. I think it's a beautiful thing. And I'm always just, it charges me up to connect with people who are so passionate about service and who care about other people. That's what gets my battery charged up. But yeah, I think with that, the best is yet to come. We'll see where it goes from here, but definitely can't wait to hear more of your story on the other side. So as we wrap up, I want to thank you all for tuning in and listening to the pod today. And I want you to remember, as Laura said, I didn't say it, she said it, service is the gospel. That is the gospel. And through that, you find all the practicality and all the meaning of what it is to be a Christian and a believer. And last word, to exist, it's not enough. We out here to be out here. So be out here. We out here and we out.